so I've got one of my friends here on the podcast today, and I'm really excited about Michael Arias joining us here on the Dental Practice Launch Podcast. Michael is the ground marketing expert in dental startups and dental practices in general. And so this is why I'm excited. We're talking marketing. I love marketing. Michael, how's it going, man? How have things been in your neck of the woods?
Hey, man. I appreciate you inviting me on, coming on. Congrats on the relaunch or the rebrand of the podcast, too. It's going to be exciting, going to help a lot of people. But things are going good over here, man. Weather's crazy in LA. For those listening who are in LA, they're like, yeah, Monday we were in 80-something degree weather. Now it's like 40, 50-something. It's all over the place, but kind of going with the... And I know some people are like, 50 ain't that cold. But for us it is. For me it is at least. So... yeah, man, it's been good. How about you? How have you been?
It's been great, man. It's got a lot going on, which is fun, and we're enjoying it. Just enjoying the journey, seeing working with a lot of startup practices, which is really what our passion is, and I know your passion as well. And for our audience, most of you probably know Michael, but for those of you who don't, Michael's the host of the Dental Marketer podcast. I've been on many different times, and they just put out a lot of great content. So if you're not following them, definitely go check them out. But he's also, got his hands in a lot of different projects, from making of a dental startup, worked with Sandy Purdue and her podcast. And Michael is very well just known in the dental community for his ground marketing strategy and tactics that practice owners can use. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today, which I'm excited about. And for those of you who are considering a startup, or maybe you're in the process of opening a startup, one of the common questions that we always get is, when do we start all of our marketing campaigns? Everything from digital campaigns to maybe it's mailers, ground marketing. And I feel like there's a lot of different answers out there when it comes to that. But for you, Michael, you've been doing this for years, and you've helped a lot of really successful startups get off the ground. What have you found is like a timeline like for ground marketing? I know that's a broad term, but what's kind of the timelines before even the opening on when that should begin, do you think?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. So if it's a startup, right, typically we like to do it around 3 to 4 months before opening. This is just ground marketing alone, right? Marketing in general, like, man, you should have started documenting your process when you thought about opening up your practice, right? Like, okay, and start documenting that on social media and everything like that. But ground marketing specifically, where you're setting up booths, attending events, things like that, like I'd say a good hit is 3 to 4 months, only because sometimes they will ask, well, not sometimes, they will always ask. There will be people who ask if you're at an event, are you guys available? Are you open? Are you available right now, tomorrow, right? And
as soon as I can get in.
yeah, you're not. But you still want to get their information, right? Name, numbers, and things like that. And then let them know. We'll let you know as soon as we're open. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, I need somebody right now. It's like, okay, if I can still have your information, I'll let you know. Maybe something can happen, right? Whatever. Although like you're not going to fast forward the construction process and a week from now it'll be open. But you can give them updates, right? And people like that. They like these updates, like meaningful updates, not like, hey, we just got a CBCT. State the benefit of the updates, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're getting nervous. We're ramping up. I can't believe it's happening in 3 weeks from now. This is something I've been thinking about since blah, 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 right? That's if they're through email, right? You get their email information. If you get their phone number, you can let them know through text messaging, like, hey, guess what? Countdown 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, right? Every time. But you always want to get their information, and I recommend, 3 to 4 months beforehand, yeah.
And when you say, get their information, I know there's a lot of different ways of doing this and a lot of different types of information. So what are some of that basic information that you should be getting? Name, email, what else?
Yeah, so normally, typically, what I like to do is name, contact information, best time to reach them at, right? I used to ask them like text or call. Now I just do both, right? Regardless, even if they're like, what? I just feel like everybody can text now. Email, I never really ask for anymore unless it's prior to opening up, right? I'll ask for number and email. Just 'cause I can give them like a little bit of a story of who we are. But sometimes these emails, like, as you know, they go through spam or they go through their folder, or maybe I wrote down a letter wrong, or they wrote down a letter wrong, or something, and it's returned to sender. So email doesn't always a fit. Now that's why I always get their number. I can contact them immediately. And plus, when you get a text message, you kind of like immediately look at it. You're like, "What? Who's this?" And you realize who it is, and they're top of mind compared to an email. So I'd say get both if you can, but definitely name, contact information, best time to reach them at. Best time to reach them at, so hey, you told me to call you at this time, like 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or something, right? And then you can kind of see a good amount of chunks. Like, it looks like everybody wants me to call them after work at 4 p.m. and on. So I'm going to make sure I call everybody at 5, right? Instead of like sporadically calling people different times and doing all that. So yeah.
Do you, on before the opening, do you do anything that asks like for an appointment time? Like, what would be your preferred day of an appointment, or is it too soon? If it's 3 months before you've opened or whatever, is it too soon to ask a question like that?
I mean, you could. I just feel like there might be more important questions to ask later on, or even then. I feel like it might be too soon in the sense of delays happen, right? Like, you've heard that a ton of times, like, oh, we thought we were going to be open this week. Now we have to call them and reschedule them and, all these things. And you don't want to do that all the time. So delays can happen. It can be too soon if you ask them for a specific appointment time. But you could, if you know exactly and you have full faith or confidence in your construction guy, and you're like, we will be open on January 1st, no matter what, then you could, you know what I mean, and book that out. But I'd say maybe like a month out, that's when you want to start doing that.
One question I've seen some dentists get hung up on when we're doing these coming soon, whether it's ads or the ground marketing, is, I think you're onto something where you say there's more important information to get, because you don't want to have somebody who wants to get on your VIP list or whatever it is to have to answer 10 or 15 questions to get on it, because that's a barrier of entry. But something that I commonly hear is, should I have something that says, ask them if they have dental insurance? If so, who's their provider? So I know that. Again, going back to this initial kind of getting the lead information phase, is that something that you typically tell people to hold off on once you contact them, or do you have them put that information down when you're collecting their information?
Once you're open and everything, I can ask for that during conversation, right? Sometimes the point of ground marketing, if you're at an event, or I guess the point of an event, right? If you're at an event, doing a booth or something like that, is just to get the names and numbers. That's it. You don't want to have to like, okay, do you qualify and everything? No, you can do all that over the phone, right? The point of that moment is to create that human-to-human interaction, that relationship, that unique moment, that emotional connection, and then boom, you got their information. They're still hot on your mind. You're still hot on their mind. Contact them within 48 hours, right? And then you continue to answer their questions over the phone. What kind of insurance do you have? Things like that. But if it's before opening, I wouldn't really ask that. Especially since you're still probably like getting credentials in and stuff like that. You're trying to see, okay, what insurances we're going to be rolling with, which ones not. So I wouldn't focus too much on that when it comes to the initial part, right? I'd ask more questions like, if they're like, yeah, put me down and I'm willing to wait. Why are they willing to wait, right? You can kind of hone in on your brand that way. Maybe their last practice, I hated them, I didn't like them, they make me wait, or they do this, or blah, 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 right? You can kind of focus a little bit more on that. And then now you're starting to create a little bit more of your brand, right? You can kind of create your messaging a little bit better that way. So there's better, kind of like a little bit of better things you can ask.
So, let's say you're at a community event, and here in a second we'll get into where are some places that you need to be doing ground marketing, for your startup, and we'll dive into that deeper. But let's say you're at a community event, you have a booth set up. How important is it, Michael, to be prepared for that? Because, it's one thing, and I'm guilty of this myself. I've gone to a conference before and felt just totally unprepared. And then once I was there, I was like, okay, what should I be talking about with people? Like, should I be asking them questions? So for you, what do you think, like, how important is it to come prepared if you're going to have a booth? And is it about trying to build rapport and get to know them so that way they feel, I don't know, more invested in your practice when you open? What are your thoughts on the preparation of something like that?
Yeah, you always, I mean, you can always be prepared for everything, right? And you thinking back, even if however prepared you come, you can always be like, I should have prepared probably a little bit more. But don't let yourself have paralysis by analysis, right? To be like, I need to prepare a little bit better and then I can do this event. No, just go do it. Go do the event, right? And the best thing I can tell you is a lot of the times we get caught up with what are we going to give out? Spin the wheel. We got to do all these things, right? You don't. You don't have to do all that. Remember, the name of the game is to create that connection. I mean, there's really 6 things when it comes to ground marketing. You want to have that personal touch, right? That human-to-human interaction. You want to create memorable experiences. So lasting impressions, right? You're the only one talking to this person, creating that moment right now in that conversation. So all these times when we're doing digital ads and everything, and you're talking to them through the phone, or your front office is talking to them through the chat feature on your website, you're doing that in real time with someone. So that's the memorable experience, right? Number 3 is the targeted approach. Now you're in a specific location targeting a specific, so a daycare, right? You're in a daycare section, or maybe you're at a school, or maybe you're at an apartment complex. You know your demographic. It's a targeted approach now. Or senior citizens, right? Demographic, targeted approach. Then number 4 is you're building that emotional connection. That's when maybe they might talk to you and be like, man, you know what? Look, I've always wanted specific implants right here, or right there, or a bridge, but I've just been dealing with these unfit dentures my whole life, or whatever, right? I just want to eat better. You're creating that emotional connection. And then 5 is word of mouth. I mean, that's where the memorable experiences happen. People are going to be walking around your event or your booth and be like, hey, where'd you get that balloon? My kid wants a balloon, or whatever. And be like, oh, it's this booth over here. It's that person over there, right? People are going to see you, word of mouth. Through social media, word of mouth, right? When it comes to like your booth setup or whatever, they'll take pictures, word of mouth. And then 6 would be the data collection. You collect their information. You get all their preferences or whatever, their information, contact information, and then boom. That's what you're going to do. So it's mainly those 6 things when it comes to ground marketing. And that's why it's very immediate, I guess you could say, right? Very effective. So when you're at a booth, notice like none of that really mattered. Like, dude, make sure you have like the brightest spin the wheel color and all that stuff. No, what you want to have is like a booth and just your hygiene kits. Just your hygiene kits, take them apart, because the name of the game when you're at a booth is not convenience. You don't want them to just grab the baggie and go. You want them to stay there and be like, hey, grab whatever you want. It's free. Put them in the little baggie, grab one of each. They're grabbing it, putting it one of each, and be like, you know what? This week or this month, LA Fitness and us decided to partner up to give you, the customers here, the residents here, whoever here, your incentive, right? It can be whatever incentive. A new patient exam, a free whitening, or whatever. What everybody's doing is they're giving us their name and number, and I can put you down, and I personally will give you a call. They're like, yeah, sure, put me down, and boom, you're creating conversation, right? But if they just grab a baggie and go, let's just say you have 2 people there, 3 people there, people are just going to grab one, grab another, grab another. And that's what you don't want, right? So it's really what matters most is the person that's there. Ground marketing, making sure they keep these 6 points in mind, right? I got to collect the data. That's the main thing, or that's one of the main things. Then I have to have that connection. I have to create relationship, rapport, right? So it kind of comes down to that.
It's all psychology at the end of the day. And I thought Michael brought up a good point right there about you don't want people to just grab a bag and be on their way, and then they got a bunch of your stuff, but they never really able to stop and make you didn't have time to make a connection with them. But by keeping everything separated out and instead of putting that into the bag, that gives you time to have that conversation with them, build the rapport like you talked about. And then there's much more easier connection there. Have you ever read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie?
I don't think I've ever read that book. Like, I know, right? I read it, but I never read that.
That's
book.
A good one. You should, you should definitely read that one. But that's what it reminds me of, where it talks about. I mean, the name of the game is How to Win Friends and Influence People, and one of the things there is connection, and how can you. If you're providing something for somebody, there's this like reciprocity rule, right? Where they're going to want to, do something for you or be more invested in you. And I feel like a lot of these 6 points here that you listed off ties right back into that, which is like a proven psychological effect on humans, right? Where at the end of the day, mammals and we are somewhat predictable. So that was really good. Now, one of the things I wanted to kind of follow up there was on you'd mentioned a variety of different avenues that you can do ground marketing at, and I'm sure depending on the type of practice you have, that's different. So like schools, daycares, like for pediatric dentists, great spots, senior living communities, things like that for somebody who's wanting to do implants. What are some, like, for let's just say it's a general dental practice to start, so it's GP. What are maybe 3-4 different places or type of ground marketing campaigns that a startup that's going to be opening in 3 or 4 months should look at?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if it's general, first of all, to me that's the beauty of ground marketing. Like nothing is off limits. Nothing. Only what we put in our minds. Like I don't know if I should go there, maybe, right? But if it's like the Costco, right? Costco's one. Like for example, like places like that, like Costco, Sam's Club. I would definitely go there. They allow you to set up a booth in their employee lounge center. So every single time employees take a break, you're there. You're just there with them. Same thing with the post office. They allow that early in the morning. So before they all go out, you're there. You're able to be there in their break room, in their area where they get ready, and just talk to them for a little bit, right? Same thing with hotels even. Hotels will allow you, specific hotels, mainly the big ones, they allow you to be like, hey, you want to come to our office team meeting in the mornings, right? You have to be there kind of early, but you can be there in the team meetings once a month. They allow you to be there, and you can present your membership plan or whatever. So if it was specific locations, I'd say mainly I would do, depending on how young you want to go, right? Like meaning like daycares or stuff like that. I would definitely do apartment complex. They're really, really good. They will always provide you a ton of new patient leads and potential new patients. The next thing I would do is I would do anything cosmetic or like maybe gyms, right? Gyms, fitness locations, they're great because it's people looking to improve themselves. So you can definitely go on the cosmetic side for that. Senior citizens are fantastic, especially if you want to, do a little bit more targeted approach. And what I mean by that is don't overthink it with senior citizens. They're going to let you do presentations and stuff like that. And sometimes you think you have to walk in there and do a implant presentation or something. But no, like all you got to do is just say, what questions or concerns do you guys have that I can answer for you? And once that one person starts asking about insurance or whatever, it's mainly insurance, but like, oh, do you take my insurance or anything like that? Everybody else will start talking and answering, and it just becomes like an hour of like, you're their person who's like, he got the answers, she got the answers. Take my information. Yes, I want to go see you, right? So quick Q&A is really, really good for that. So I would say those three right now. Like if you're really trying to hone in, target apartment complexes, and you can be busy with that for years alone. And then the senior citizens, and then the other, what was the other place I said?
It's daycare, schools, gyms, hotels.
Gyms is fantastic. Yeah, like gyms would be a really good. So I would do gyms. If you had to pick, gyms, apartments, and senior homes. Or if you want, you just go to your Chamber of Commerce, go to business directory and check out there what businesses have what specific business name. Like it can be like mechanic, right? Or cosmetics or whatever. And click to see which one has the most, what kind of patients you want coming from. And then just target those businesses there. You don't even have to be part of the Chamber of Commerce to do that. You can just go on their website.
And one thing I'm curious is like, let's say if you're going into that gym or going into that senior citizen senior living facility, maybe what are some things to come prepared with? I know earlier you mentioned the hygiene kits and things like that, but should you have a flyer, QR code? What are some maybe items that you should be equipped with when you go to one of these events?
Yeah, so every event is probably going to be a little bit different, right? Or it is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to go to a daycare or gym with the same information and stuff as a senior home, right? Like Polydent and things like that are really great, or Polygrip are really great for seniors, believe it or not. Well, it's for their dentures. So things like that, maybe a toothbrush, stuff that's easy, but it's more like I told you, a broken down hygiene kit. When it comes to seniors, it's more what you're going to be saying to them, how you're going to interact with them and talk to them. Same thing with gyms. Gyms, I would just do a broken down hygiene kit as well if you want. Daycares or major events where it's like a health fair or something, I'd do a little bit more. One major thing I would implement is balloons. Balloons are fantastic and it's small, not a big expense, but people will be drawn to you not only because like, okay, that's where the balloons are coming from, but their kids who see the balloons are going to be like, I want a balloon. And then they're going to come and go to you, right? And it's kind of cool seeing a sea of balloons in these health fair events with your brand, your logo on it, and your colors. So I definitely do that when it comes to that. But the main thing you want to have is like a sign-up sheet. And if you want maybe like an iPad, that's really to put their information on the practice management system immediately if they want to schedule an appointment on the spot, or the sign-up sheet that's there. And if it's a health fair, like a big event, 2 to 3 people at the booth. If it's a smaller event, like an apartment complex, it could be just like one or two. But what matters most, Shane, is the person, right? Like you want that person to turn it on for those 3 hours, 2 hours, and give it all they got, right? Hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Oh my gosh. Even if they have headphones on, hey, how's it going? Even if they don't reply back, you want to talk to every single person first before they actually acknowledge you. It helps a lot.
Yeah, you can't just sit there and expect people to come up to you and just start talking all the time. Like you may get a few here and there, but you have to be, I imagine, standing up, standing by the booth, reaching out to people. Hey, how's it going? Like you had mentioned, it is and I know dentists hate this word, but it's a sales process, right? So you have to bring kind of that energy where it's not like you're used car salesman, but you have to be talkative and be able to start building that relationship, with somebody who's just passing by you for a few seconds.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, if you think about it, business, somebody said this, I forgot who, but business is all about relationships. How well you build them determines how well they build your business. So you really have to create these relationships with people.
I'm marking that. Like, that's going to be one of our Instagram reels right there. That was good. Yeah. That's a truth, though. I mean, it's all about relationships. So as we're kind of like starting to wrap up here and finalize, one question I had before I wanted to get in kind of to our top 3 actionable steps people can leave with after listening to this podcast. But one is in your opinion, when you are doing one of these ground marketing events, should you take photos and post those on social media as well and tag like whatever business or location you're at, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, 100%. Like you want to, so ground marketing is not like the end all, don't have to do anything else. Like, no, that's like another avenue, right, for your marketing. So you do want to take pictures, do these Instagram lives, Facebook lives, right? Let people know you're out in the community. I don't think there's ever been a time where it's like, oh, we've had too much content from this event. No, it's like you want to have as much content as you can, like but don't let that hinder you collecting the data, right? So remember, there has to be priorities here, or a priority. So collecting the data first, and then when you have that slow time, downtime, instead of sitting down or being on the phone, be on your phone, but stand up and then start documenting things. Use social media, take pictures, let people know where you're at. Definitely tag businesses, even tag the businesses around them. If you're even at a major event, tag the other booths around you and be like, hey, look who's next to us, blah, blah, blah. Oh, hey, look who's next to us, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to share it, right? So you never want to just be, that's the worst thing. Every time we talk to our members, I'm like, you never want to be that person who's just on the phone looking down while people are walking by. That if you can be standing up as much as you can, be in front of the booth even as much as you can when it's like slower or whatever. Talk to the other vendors, sign them up, get their place of business so you can go tomorrow to their actual place of business and drop off like sign up sheets and stuff for them. There's so much to do at these events and health fairs and things like that nobody should ever just be sitting down, You know what I mean? On there, they should be creating that content for social media.
100%. Yeah, great advice. It's not enough to just check the box and say, "Hey, I went to this event. I did ground marketing. Why didn't it work?" Well, did you actually interact with people, or did you just kind of sit on your phone and were like, "Oh, I hope so nobody comes up and talks to me"? You know?
Yeah.
So definitely you have to have that right mindset when you go into it. So, Michael, as we're starting to come to a close here, what are just if 3 things that people should take away if they're starting to think about ground marketing for their practice, whether it's a startup, whether it's an existing practice, whatever the case is, just what are maybe those 3 last pieces of advice that you would give to our listeners?
Number one, I mean, there's if you are real serious about starting ground marketing and you're like, yes, I want to be that dentist who's out in the community or that practice who's out in the community being known and everything. First, you have to hone in on your starter list, meaning like you can't just say, okay, let's just go out to the community. Tomorrow we're going to go out, guys. No, it has to be specific. So create your starter list. And the way you do that, and Shane, you know this, is really think about your existing patients or your favorite patients or who you want your favorite patients to be, right? Where do they work? Where do they live? Are they homeowners or apartment loft people? Do they have kids? Where did their kids go to school? Do they shop? Do they like coffee? What coffee shops do they go to? You got to think about all this and really hone it down. They like Starbucks. They live in these apartments. They go to this Montessori school. They work at the Amazon fulfillment center, whatever. Boom. Now you have locations to go to, right? Now you have specific type of businesses. Oh, they go to Wells Fargo banks. That means you're going to go to banks, right? Kind of thing. So create that starter list first and foremost. That way you're not just going out there. Second thing is I also want to know is each location has a different script. So you're not going to go into a bank and then use that same script to go into a daycare, right? You want to be very strategic with everything to prepare. So that's where community research comes in. A lot of the times let's just go with banks, right? A lot of the times we say, you know what, I want to go to all the banks and get the tellers to come in, get the employees to come in and all these things. So we're going to go to all Chase banks. But then you realize as you're doing community research and radius checks, you're like, holy snap, we only have one Chase bank in our location. And, you probably have other smaller ones. So you're probably going to go to all these other ones. But then you do the math and you're like, are people really going to drive an hour away from there to come see me? Probably not, right? So don't waste your time. So that'll be the second thing is do community research, really check to see like, okay, would this type of business be lucrative for me? Would it not? Do that, right? So create your starter list, see how many schools, how many banks, how many apartment complexes, how many coffee shops you have in your location. And if you feel like, okay, it's a great amount, target those. Even if you only have one, you're eventually going to target it, but I wouldn't focus on that. The third thing is pick one type of thing to target and dedicate that month to target it. So instead of just saying like, okay, today we're going to go to apartment complexes. Tomorrow we're going to go to some smaller businesses and stuff. No, be like this month, we're going to go to apartment complexes. There's 30 of them in our location. So we're really going to hone in, practice this script or practice our approach and go in and target them, right? And then you do that. You say, okay, 30 divided by 4 weeks. How many are we going to go to each week? And this is what we're going to say and what we're going to do. That way, you start spinning the wheels. You know what to do. Next week, you'll know what to do even better. Third week, you know the kinks around it. You know exactly what you need to jump around, go around, whatever. And it becomes easier. So much easier. You can finalize, hone in on your script. And yeah, man, that's it, really. So starter list, community research, and radius checks, and then hone in on a specific business each month if you can.
I love that. Yeah, it's like a deep focus, and then it's like once you get in if you like apartments you chose that month, after you do 1 or 2, then you start to kind of get in a flow as well. And it may be hard if you're jumping from apartment to gym to grocery store, and like you had said, the messaging is different in all of those locations. So I really like that insight of pick one thing. If it's apartments, go all in on that for a month, and you'll get in a rhythm with it too, which then will make that ground marketing that much more effective. And this was awesome. I know, like, I'm literally going to send this out to all of our startups because it's like, this is great advice. But for those who are wanting to dive deeper into this, Michael, and really learn how can I take, my ground marketing to the next step, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you and your material?
Yeah, man. The best way I can help you guys when it comes to ground marketing is two ways. If you're a pediatric dentist, we have the pediatric dental marketing course, and that's with Manal Sampat and myself. So you get the digital marketing side on how to make it with your team, and then at the same time the ground marketing side. But if it's, you're not a pediatric, the ground marketing course, that one's everything I know and my team and members know in that course. And so we give specifics like, hey, you want to learn how to get into Oshkosh B'gosh? Here, watch this video, right? It's specific to Oshkosh B'gosh. Or if you want to get into karate classes or whatever, like that's specific for that too, or senior homes. And so those are a little bit more, everything in the ground marketing course is in there where we kind of update it, utilize it. So that's the two best ways I can help you. Other than that, the podcast, or you can find a ton of information on thedentalmarketer.org.
Yeah, and you've also got a great Facebook group. Definitely plug the Facebook group because I learned a lot in that group as well.
Yeah, the Dental Marketer Society is our Facebook group, and so yeah, we put a lot of what our guests talk about and what we talk about in there too.
No, definitely go check out Michael's stuff. The ground marketing course, I've just heard nothing but great things about it from clients that we have that's used it, and this guy knows his stuff. So definitely reach out and learn more about how you can up your ground marketing game. Michael, thank you so much, man, for hopping on here, sharing these insights. I cannot wait to share this with our audience, and we'll have to do it again soon.
All right, man. Thank you for having me.